let's consider what planetary dignity is used for. And what is planetary dignity? Whenever you're looking at a birth chart, you might see up in the corner the list of the planets, and then you see an F, a GE, a G, or an EX. Well, all those indicate the dignity. F is for friend, GF is for great friend, N is for neutral, E is for enemy, GE is for great enemy, EX is for exalted, DB is for debilitated, and MT is for mula trikona. And all of these show how a planet is going to work within your birth chart. Now, there are a lot of things you have to consider to see specifically how it's going to affect the house that it's in. But if you want a general idea, we need to look at the dignity. And if you've ever seen some of the books where it gives this planet's in this house, or second lord is in the fifth house, and then it gives positive influences and negative influences. Well, this is where you want to start to use dignity, because if the planet's in good dignity, then you would primarily look at the positive influences. Bad dignity, you look at the negative influences. Neutral, well, then you got to sort of pick out, mix up, see which way it might go based on other factors. But the dignity is the first thing we need to consider. And what's a good dignity? Planets in a friend sign, great friend sign, mula trikona, exalted, in that order, from least to highest. Those are good dignity planets, which means they're going to be able to take care of the affairs of the house that they rule. If your 10th lord is exalted or in a great friend sign, your career, your activity in the world, in general, will have better capacity to work and function, as long as that planet isn't getting smashed by Lajatati Avashtas or other difficult placements. If your 6th lord is in a great enemy sign, debilitation, well, that can show difficulties with enemies, difficulties with health, acute illnesses. Again, these can get mitigated by other things, such as the Baladi Avashtas, the Jagrati Avashtas. But you can get a sense just from looking at the planetary dignity. I initially thought I would go through and outline how to find the dignity. It's covered in most Vedic astrological softwares. I'm sure you can find it in most books. I just quit doing a video previously where I was going into the whole detail, and it got so convoluted that I would like you to get a book on Vedic astrology, the art and science of Vedic astrology, any book that talks about planetary dignity, how to calculate it, and study that. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it in just a short video. But if you don't feel like calculating it, just go by your software program. If we look to the side here, what we see is the list of planetary friendships. This is where you got to start. So learn planetary friendships first. You have to memorize this. When a planet is in a friend sign, so if the sun is in the sign of the moon, Mars, or Jupiter, it's in a friend sign, which means he has more capacity to work in a positive manner. When he's in the sign of Venus or Saturn, he has less capacity to work in a positive manner. And this document over here, this is from a number of classes I've taught, whether Lajatati Avashtas, the step-by-step class. And we need to know these things to see how the planets are going to function. So start memorizing this chart. Pause this video, write down all these things, or read it in the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology, or Google it. But what we want to do is understand this first, and once we get a handle on it, then we can start using the dignity to see how different areas of our life are going to work. And let's consider this. So again, this is from the step-by-step class. And in that step-by-step class, in this manual, which comes with the class, I went through and spent a long time writing out what does it mean to have the ruler of the third and the fifth, or the ruler of the fourth and the fifth. So I've gone through all combinations of all the planets, all the house lords, and all of the signs. And if we see a planet in exaltation, and let's say it's the third lord, so the third lord's in exaltation, and it's in the fifth house, what am I going to focus on? Well, in this whole list of things, I'm going to focus on the positive influences primarily. Now, this might get altered by the influence of a negative planet, or it might get altered because maybe the planet Shadbala isn't that strong. But the general idea is going to come based on the planetary dignity, whether it's a positive or negative influence. Now, with these kinds of things, you also need to take into consideration what is the planet that we're talking about. Well, if the third lord is Venus, or Mercury, for example, and it's in the fifth, well, we need to think about what are Venusian or mercurial things. Well, Venus can be interested in appreciating art, dance. Mercury can be interested in acting and drama and writing. And so when I'm looking at these kinds of indications, what I'm first of all thinking is, what is the planetary dignity? Is it good, friend, great friend, Mula Tricona exalted, or is it bad? If it's good, I look at the positive influences. If it's bad, excuse me, if it's bad, I look at the negative influences. And then after that, I qualify it. I think, well, what is the planet that we're talking about? And I look at these paragraphs, and if we're talking about Mars, well, if the third lord is great enemy sign in the fifth, and it's Mars, well, Mars is a planet of willfulness. So I'd focus on this one, willful children here. You can give a person willful children, or difficulty with their children. If it's Venus, great enemy sign, as the third lord in the fifth house, then I might focus on makes bad decisions. Why? Because Venus is the planet that allows us to know if we're making good or bad decisions. All right, so whenever you're using this kind of document, you don't want to just cut and paste and say, well, this is the way it's going to be because the third lord is in the fifth. You need to consider, what is the planet, what does that planet represent, and then match the innate qualities of that planet to these particular influences. And you can go through all the houses, ruler of the 6th and the 10th. Using Mars again. If we have a Mars in great friend sign, ruling the 6th lord, or excuse me, ruling the 6th house, and that Mars is placed in the 10th, well, sure enough, I want to focus on known for skills in defense, because Mars is about that. You see, I wouldn't focus on this if it was Jupiter. He might have knowledge of defense or knowledge of health issues, because Jupiter is a planet of knowledge. Or, if it's Jupiter, it takes effort towards happiness, because Jupiter is a planet of happiness. So always keep this in mind. So when it comes to planetary dignity, good dignity planets help to support the positive influences of what that planet represents and of what the houses it rules represents. Bad dignity planets show that that planet cannot support itself, or it cannot support the house that it rules. Just like if you have a family and you don't have a job and you're broke, well, your family is going to suffer because you can't take care of it. So that's like you're in bad dignity at that point. And so the things that you're meant to take care of aren't working well, or aren't happy. If you're in good dignity and you have a great job and you make lots of money, well, your family feels better too. So think of it this way. The houses that a planet rules, that is the area of life that that planet is responsible for. If that planet is in good dignity, it takes care of those areas of life indicated by that particular house that it rules. If a planet is in bad dignity, then it's not able to take care of the affairs of the houses that it rules. If it's in neutral dignity, well, now there's going to be, that's called scarcity, which means it's just getting by. So it's not terrible, it's not destroyed, but it's just getting by with neutral dignity. And it goes in grades. But again, there are mathematical ways to qualify that, but that's way beyond the this particular class here. Also, you can have a planet in good dignity, and this is where the Logitati Avashtas come into play, and why that Logitati Avashtas course is so important to take. Because you can have a planet in great dignity, but if that planet is getting hurt by its enemies, and those enemies are strong, they're exalted as well, well, that good thing is getting hurt by very powerful enemies. So let's go back here. Let me scroll back up, see if I can find that. Okay, so here we are. So let me try to explain this, because someone asked a question about Venus being debilitated, or Venus being exalted, and they've seen the negative aspects of Venus coming out when Venus was exalted. Well, first of all, Venus might not be a good planet for the person we're talking about. If it rules the 3rd, the 6th, the 11th house, well, that's a Raj Yoga breaker, and it gets in the way of one's dharma. So having an exalted yoga breaker, well, even though it's exalted, it's good for other things. It's good for the houses that it rules, but it might not be good for the person's path in life. Let's say that, let's say we have Mars, and let's say that Mars is exalted. Now, if Mars' enemy, Mercury, is also exalted, then that shows that while Mars is strong, he still has a powerful opponent that's aiming to hurt him. So this is why the Lajataya Vashas allow us to make more specific predictions, because something can be great innately, but it can also get powerfully hurt by something that's just as strong as it. And I like to use the example of a car. Maybe you have the chart to have a very expensive $100,000 car, and you get it, and it's great. So the planet that rules vehicles for you is exalted. Now, let's say that both Saturn and Mars are hurting that car, hurting the indication of that car, and both Saturn and Mars are exalted. So that's like you're going down a road in this beautiful car, so you have the karma to get it, but then a giant dump truck pulls out and just demolishes your car. So you had it, but there were these other influences which destroyed it. Same thing. You can have a planet in bad dignity who can't hardly take care of himself, and maybe your car is a junk heap, cost you $200 maybe. It goes well, but it's all rusted out and looks like crap. But there are no enemies going for it. So you can have a poor planet, but if no one's trying to hurt it, it doesn't matter. That car will go much longer than, say, the Lamborghini that just got ran over by a dump truck. So this is where we start getting into the more subtle aspects of astrology. And this is why it's so hard when someone posts a question, why have this planet here? What does this mean? Well, we can't just do that. We have to look at the chart as a whole. We need to see, just because a planet's exalted, it can still get hurt if it's got 3 enemies trying to destroy it. And just because a planet's debilitated, if it's got friends helping it, well, it doesn't matter how debilitated it is, it'll help support it with no enemies. So this is, again, going back to the Lajataya Vashtas, why I find them to be so beautiful, why I fell in love with them when I first started studying them, and why I was really inspired to teach that class that's available at my website, because it fills in the colors, it fills in the details of a person's life situation. And this is applicable to timing of dashas, because if you're in a period of a planet that's a great enemy, in a great enemy sign, so maybe business isn't going so well, just to make it a little more specific, let's say you're in a period of Jupiter, and Jupiter rules the 10th house of career, but your Jupiter is in a great enemy sign, not doing so hot. But Jupiter dasha works out all right for you in general, because Mercury and Venus might not even be influencing Jupiter, which means its enemies aren't trying to tear it down. But maybe there's a powerful impact of the Sun and Moon and Mars aspecting this Jupiter, which means that Jupiter's friends, the Sun, Moon, and Mars, are going to help to uplift that aspect of your career. And if Jupiter rules the 10th house, then that would mean you're probably we'll just say a Pisces ascendant, which means the Sun is going to rule your the Sun's going to rule your 6th house. So maybe there's some sort of legal matter that comes up that helps to get you moving down your path further. Sun rules 6th house things. The Moon rules the 5th. Maybe your children help you. Maybe you have a creative insight that comes forward, which helps to support your work. Mars rules the 2nd, and Mars rules the 9th house for a Pisces ascendant. So if Mars is helping, well, the 9th house is father, is guru. Maybe the father helps you out. Maybe your parents help you out. The 2nd house is your family in general. Maybe your family helps you out. So this is, again, why we start to see how we can paint a better picture, because there's so much going on in a chart. And this allows us to determine what's happening when we apply it to the dashas. So anyway, just to recap, learn how to understand planetary dignities. Learn how to apply them based on these principles we've just gone over. Basically, planets in good dignity will do well. Planets in bad dignity won't do so well. They won't be able to take care of the houses that they rule. Now, if you want to know more in detail just how they're going to act, well, that's when we start adding the Lajatati Avashtas. And what are the Lajatati Avashtas? They're showing if a planet's getting delighted by friends, starved by enemies, agitated by the sun, these sorts of things. They will help to paint the picture a little bit more. The Baladi Avashtas and the Jagrati Avashtas, they will show how strong of a karma is it. We've already done one video on this, and I'll do another one here coming up shortly. But start realizing that this is how you put everything together. And it's not easy, and it takes a lot of contemplation. But once you get it in your mind and your consciousness, it becomes more second nature. It took me a long time to absorb this information, and I still use resources. I still use reminders because I don't want to forget it, and it's easy to get it mixed up within your head. But the good news is there are books out there that explain this to you. The document that we're looking at here, this is going to be part of the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology Volume 2 that I will be hopefully having out this spring, which will talk about the Lajatati Avashtas. It will talk about the rulers of planets and houses and such. So you've got a lot of information that can help you, that's available to you. The thing is to just start doing charts, looking at the charts of people you know. I don't recommend looking at your own chart because you're not going to be objective about it, but look at the charts of people that you know and ask them questions. See how it works out. And you'll be really happy when it starts falling into place for you, because it's just like learning a language or learning a new song. The second that you finally get it, that aha moment comes along, then you have it forever. So enjoy, and I look forward to the next videos we will be doing together.